Okay. What we'll do is we'll open up in prayer. So prayer, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the world, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of this day of judgment in which we do now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we seek for thine aid. O Allah, guide us on the right path. Guide us on the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors upon, and not the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down upon, nor the path of those who go astray after hearing thy teaching. And say, He, Allah, is one God. Allah is He of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all do depend. He begets not, nor is He begotten, and there is none like He. Ameen. Okay, brothers and sisters, once again, I want to thank each and every one of you all for calling in. I know the last class that presentation we were supposed to have, we didn't have it as a scheduled timing conflict, but we have our brother from Orlando, Florida, who will be speaking to us today. And Brother James, if you're on, I'm sending you the code. And after I mute everybody, you can just press that code. I'll give you the signal. And matter of fact, what I'll do now, I'll just mute everyone now. So everyone is muted right now. So Brother James, if you can send me a text back letting me know that you got the got the code, that'll be good, and we'll be ready to start. So for our brothers and sisters who are on the line, tonight we're going to have our brother, and he's going to talk about the title I sent to everybody. He talks about how to recreate yourself, and he's talking about, how do we handle when we have experience being in a position in our nation. It can be a lieutenant, it can be whatever the positions are that those people from time to time serve, and they help to progress the nation forward. You can think about the four laborers. You can also think about in regards to, lieutenants, squad leaders, whatever it may be, man. Everybody who takes on the mantle of leadership in our nation helps to put it forward. But, for a variety of reasons, changes take place. Some people have been successful in handling those changes, and some people have not. And the idea to have our brother come on, I have to credit our brother Demetric, because as we were planning this, even when we first started planning and I talked to him about possible ideas for presentations, he mentioned our brother James, and the timing was right, and we are now able to hear from the experience of our brother. So I don't want to delay it any further. Our brother is on, and what we're going to do, he'll give his presentation, and as normal, you have any questions, ask him the questions, and then after that, when we conclude the call, as usual, send me a brief text message letting us know, one, what did you gain from hearing our brothers talk tonight, and what stood out to you? And we would appreciate that feedback. So without further delay, I want to bring up our brother, who's just a diligent servant. If every time I've come into contact with him, he's always had a humble spirit. And so let's let you, for those who may have not heard from our brother before, give you all the opportunity to hear our brother James Muhammad. You on, my brother?
Yes, sir, I am, Brother Willie. And let me say on the outstart there, brother, that it is a great honor and privilege to be asked to be on this show and to talk about a subject matter that has been impressed upon me by those who know me well and know some of my history, my pedagogy, if you will, and know the kind of vicissitudes of life as a Muslim that I have had to navigate through. There's nothing unique, dear brother. I think many in the nation have gone through similar changes and challenges, meeting similar changes, challenges, and difficulties. But my dear brother Demetric, our student minister, research minister of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he shared with me some insight as to how he was viewing me, particularly after he learned so much about me and my history in the Nation of Islam. And so, well, let me start out properly by giving the salutations. Before we go forward, we always must invoke the name of Allah. So in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we bear witness that there is no God but He, and we are forever thankful and grateful for His merciful and prophetic intervention in our affairs in the person of the great Mahdi, Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. We thank Him for raising up from our midst His messenger Messiah, the exalted Christ, the one whom the world has been awaiting and expecting for the past 2,000 years. The man of whom I speak is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, through whom we have been given our beloved and blessed Redeemer. I refer to him as my personal Redeemer and Savior, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It really is to him that I am deeply grateful and highly honored. And I feel highly favored, as our Christian brothers say and sisters say. But it's really his redemptive work that called me for a second time out of the grave of ignorance and the grave of the enemy's world that got a hold to me for a second time after the nation fell. So I thank Allah for all of them, and I thank Allah for you and all the laborers and believers who sacrificed to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in this mission that has been laid upon his shoulders and by extension ours. So I'm very happy, thankful, and grateful. And I want to greet all of you with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language once again. Assalamu alaikum. Am I still on? Can I be heard?
Yeah, we're still on. Everybody is muted, but they're giving me.
Oh, okay. When I didn't get a return greeting, I got kind of nervous, brother. But all praise is due to Allah. Very good. Brother Willie?
Yes, sir. You can go ahead and begin, my brother.
Oh, yes, sir. I was waiting for you to give me some guideposts or guidelines as to how to proceed, dear brother. Well, let me. Okay. Well, let me start again. This subject matter, Brother Demetric, Student Minister Demetric, thought that it was a subject matter that I should address because I have been through many changes, held practically every post in the Nation of Islam in my 46 years being a member of the Nation of Islam. And I've been, some would say, up and then down, but down, the minister said, is never really down. It's just preparation for the next stage of elevation. But I've been promoted, I've been relieved, I've been busted, and there is a difference between being relieved and being busted. But I have some degree of experience in these kinds of changes. But by the grace of Almighty God Allah and His intervention in my life, I was able to navigate these changes and to, in most cases, improve my condition, improve my service, remain faithful in the mission by Allah's grace and mercy. Our dear brother, Student Minister Demetric, pointed out to us, and I'm sure many of you have observed this unfortunate reality. Many of us in the Nation of Islam who have held posts, whether it be student minister, student captain, student secretary, student lieutenant, whatever post we held. Oftentimes, when we are relieved of the post or no longer functioning in the post under that particular title for whatever reason, many times it's a difficulty factor that is not dealt with properly. Sometimes, oftentimes, we lose sight on the big picture, and as such, we have a tendency to disappear into obscurity. We fall victim to dissatisfaction and disappointment. And we have to remember that it was disappointment and dissatisfaction that formed the Iblis mind. He was disappointed. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, "It is not what happens to you that is the significant thing. It is how you handle what happens to you that is the significant thing." Now, I'm not trying to come off as being one so rooted in faith, so imbued with the strength of faith that I can't be shaken or I can't be disappointed, or I've never had times when I felt like quitting, and I never had times where I became or retreated into obscurity. Very short periods of time, however, but I'm not trying to come off like this has never happened to me. But by and large, by the grace and mercy of Allah and those out of his mercy who he has sent into my life, being a Brother Demetric being a significant character or significant person in that regard, among many others, Allah has blessed me out of his mercy, and I must always repeat that. It's out of his mercy that he has blessed me to pick myself up, to start soldiering again. And by the way, soldiering was my saving grace. Or whenever I felt that an injustice or a miscarriage of justice occurred in my life, or when I felt that I was no longer appreciated or no longer needed because I lost a post or was relieved from a post, my saving grace was that I would always go and pick up the paper. Having done that, Allah has blessed me, particularly in the year 2015, to lead the 7th region in the sales of Final Call newspapers, selling consistently 300 papers a week. Because it is in that rank and file work, that effort of bringing the message to the people, is our saving grace. We must always remember we are FOI before we ever were student minister, student captain, student secretary, student lieutenant, student whatever title. We were and are FOI. And whenever we are facing a disappointing event in our life, whenever we're facing a difficulty, whenever there may be questions as to whether or not we were dealt with justly or whether or not we are appreciated, the best thing to do is to hit the field, to pick up the Final Call newspaper and go to work. And that's what I have always done by the grace and mercy of Allah. But as I said, Allah has blessed me to hold a number of posts over the 46 years that he has blessed me to be a registered member of the Nation of Islam. And I want to say to you that it is sometimes very difficult, because when you have a post and then you find yourself relieved, the phone calls stop. Unfortunately, because many of our brothers and sisters are title worshipers, if you will, they respect title. And I'm not saying you shouldn't respect title, but title defines function. And we should always respect the function more so than the title. But oftentimes, and I'm sure our listening audience has experienced this, someone in our listening audience has experienced this. The phone calls stop. You start being treated a certain way. Sometimes you're banished into the corner of forgottenness, if that's a word. And it is as if you're no longer the same person that held the title in the past. And then, of course, there are self-esteem issues wherein our esteem, our self-respect, our dignity, and our perception of our self-worth is wrapped up in the post that we hold. This is a mistake. We are God's children of the Most High God. And we have enrolled, every FOI has enrolled in the classroom of God. And so we are not diminished in terms of being students in the classroom, nor are we diminished or altered from being on the path to ultimately meet our purpose in life, which is to become a reflection and a manifestation, really, of our Creator. But posts, titles, functions, oftentimes they're the operant thing. And we tie our self-respect, our self-esteem, our dignity, our self-worth. We tie that to the post, and when the post is gone, then all of the rest of those aspects of our lives are ill affected. I want to say to my brothers and sisters who are listening, Allah God didn't create us ministers. He created us Muslim. He didn't create us Captain. He created us Muslim. He gave us the nature of submitting our will to do the will of God. You see, our post, as the general orders instruct us, that we should walk our post in a perfect manner, keeping always on the alert. We should always take charge of our post and all temple property in view. And we should never quit our post until properly relieved. On the surface understanding of that, it points to the particular titles or titular posts that we have of student minister, student captain, or whatever. But in reality, the broader sense, the deeper sense, is our post as Muslim. And we should never quit our post until properly relieved. And the proper relief of being a Muslim is nothing short of death. And even then in death, we're still Muslims because according to the will of God, we still serve a purpose. Our bodies are put into the earth, and out of the earth that our bodies are put in, because we fertilize that part, a new growth comes up. You see, our post is Muslim. Now, this is easy to say, and it's rolling out of my mouth kind of easy, but I can attest to you all, it is much harder to practice. Many of us come into the Nation of Islam living a life of hardly any accomplishment at all. Many of us, because we're in the world, lived a life that was absent of respect, dignity. We couldn't get anyone to respond to us, let alone say to us when we gave an instruction, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. This is a heady wine when you are blessed to be elevated to a post, to hear people respond to you, yes, sir, no, sir. People voluntarily follow your instruction. I've seen that abused, dear brother. And those of us in authority, oftentimes we think it's because of our personage, because of who we are or something that we accomplish, that we should subordinate those who are respecting us. I've been guilty of that myself in my immaturity. But again, it's a heady wine, and we become intoxicated. And in that intoxication, we cannot take losing the high, if you will, losing that kind of response, because we've wrapped our whole being in a particular pose. So I wanted to say that in the way of introduction of this subject matter. And I'd like to, if you will, now I'd like to engage Brother Willie. I don't know how long you have slated this part to be, but I really love to interact with the believers who may be on. I'd like to field any questions that they have and perhaps offer some advice, some encouragement. So
yes, sir. So what we will do, if anybody that's on the call, if you would like to ask our brother a question, feel free. What I'm going to do, I'll unmute everybody so you can ask them a question. 1 second. Everybody is unmuted. So is there anyone who would like to ask our Brother James any questions, speaking specifically about what he's talking about? Here's your opportunity to ask.
Minister Willie?
Yes.
This is Brother Dimitri. How are you, sir?
Fine by Allah's grace, Brother Dimitri.
I am enjoying hearing Brother Student Minister James, and I have to prod him, I imagine, a little bit because I would like to hear, and I think our class would benefit from him discussing some of the things that he actually did when he was out of a post, some of the things that he did to retool, to re-educate and to retrain and to prepare himself to once again assume a post on the other side of being properly relieved. And so, Brother James, I would hope that you would share some of those things that you shared with me in times past that you referenced earlier that I think are of great benefit and value.
I appreciate that, Brother Dimitri. And it's difficult sometimes to publicly talk about yourself. But I understand, and I think it would be beneficial. So a little history. For those of you who are not aware, when Student Minister Rasul was the student regional minister of the 7th region, I was blessed to be his assistant student regional minister. And I worked with him for over 20 years. Now, when he went on his health sabbatical, the structure that was set up wherein I held that post, it was systematically dismantled. And so therefore, I found myself still a student in the ministry, but no longer functioning in that capacity. Brother Rasul had established a weekly ministry conference every Saturday morning where all of the ministers, the student ministers, and the student study group coordinators would come on, give their weekly reports, ask questions, and of course, offer ideas as to how to make progress, and he supervised it all. This went on for many years. But when he went on his health sabbatical, he didn't dismantle the conference call, but there was no one really to man the call in terms of a supervisory posture. And so the dilemma for me was I wanted to see the conference call continue, but I knew based on experience how we react and respond to people who don't have any official authority. But by the grace of Allah, I asked the ministers if they would continue the conference call. And Allah blessed us to approach it in such a way that we didn't demand, we didn't instruct, we didn't command, we just asked because of the benefit that the conference gave to us all. So for approximately, I think it was over a year, I was blessed to supervise and moderate the conference call and keep the ministry together. It wasn't because of title or position, because I had no title. I had no position. Yet, there was a need that had to be fulfilled. Brother Dimitri, in times past, had shared with me certain leadership principles and the different categories of leadership. One of which is, of course, leading by authority, because you have a title, you have a post, you have an office. Then there's leadership by dictation, being dictatorial. And then there is leadership by inspiration, inspiring others to listen to you, inspiring others to follow your suggestions, not commands, but your suggestions. I did not know that I was learning how to do the third by keeping the conference together. When none of the student ministers had any official obligation at all to listen to my call, to respond to my call, to continue being on the conference call. But Allah blessed me in the time that I didn't have an official capacity. He blessed me to learn from my mistakes when I was dictatorial. He blessed me to learn from the mistakes of abuse that I was responsible for, and he blessed me to learn how to inspire people to listen. They are leaders that produce followers. And I'm not condemning that. But the best kind of leadership is leadership that produces other leadership or produces leaders. And by the grace of Allah, because I had no authority, no post, no official right to be adhered to or responded to, I learned something about leading by inspiration. So we were blessed to keep the conference call going, and in that effort, Allah blessed me to keep myself going, because I found purpose. And this is something that we have to understand. We are given purpose by Almighty God, Allah, from our birth. And as long as we understand that as long as there is life, there is a purpose that we have to fulfill. Yes, it was disappointing. It was hurting at times. But I thank Allah that He blessed us to keep the ministry staff together with some semblance of cohesion. And then we were blessed with the arrival of our dear brother and current student regional minister, student minister Patrick Muhammad, who then brought us all together, and I honorably and humbly abdicated my position and turned the moderation and supervision over to him. And in fact, he was very grateful and expressed his gratitude. He said that because of my rising to the occasion to continue the conference call, he didn't have to inherit a fractional ministry class. There was some degree of cohesion, some semblance of unity. So that was a blessing for me. Also, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had guided us in 2010. The minister had guided us in 2010 to Dianetics. And at that time, we were blessed in the city of Tampa, which, of course, is adjacent to Clearwater and St. Pete. We were blessed to work so hard in response to the minister's instructions that we really excelled in terms of producing auditors. When I studied Dianetics, I initially, of course, at the minister's instructions, got my certification as a Dianetic auditor, then a Dianetic Gold Seal auditor, which means you now have a permanent status as an auditor. I was blessed to get my supervisor's certification so that I could give seminars, Dianetic seminars. I shared with the minister in a letter. I said that I would go and get as much as I possibly could and bring it back to the nation. And the minister said, I think this was on a phone call. Forgive me. I don't know if it was in a letter or a phone call, but the minister did say, get all that you could get. He wasn't specifically talking to me, but in a general conference call, yes it was, where people were asking about going further in the study of Dianetics and in the admin or administration. He said, go and get all that you can of good and bring it back to the nation. And this is what I was blessed to do. Having done that, I took several courses, I think too numerous to mention by name, but suffice to say, I took the admin courses that helped me where I lacked, and where I lacked was in administration. I could always preach by the grace of Allah, but my administrative skills were sorely lacking. So I took several administration courses in the Church of Scientology, received several certifications, and really, by the grace of Allah and the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I made myself relevant, valuable, so that it would be difficult to disappear in obscurity. And this is a principle and point that I want to share with the listening audience. You know, oftentimes, I want to make this point too. You know, Allah has blessed us with life. First, physical life, then spiritual life through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, through the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, those of us who came into the nation under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's direct leadership. But oftentimes, because they are the source of our life, or the vessels through which we receive life and spiritual life, we kind of lay an unjustified burden on them. We look for a minister or captain or regional minister or captain to give us a post. We look for the minister to give us a post. Certainly, he's the only one that can sanction us on posts. He can. He allows regional ministers to do that. But in reality, the minister is the one and the only one that makes ministers. And oftentimes, because of the tremendous burden the minister has, if he does not, give us his personal attention, if we don't have a personal conversation with him or connection with him or communication, let me say, with him, then we think we don't have anything to do. No. Allah gave us life. The minister, through the minister, we receive spiritual life. Now we have the responsibility to take our lives and make something of our lives and not sit around waiting for someone to appoint us to this or appoint us to that. We've got work to do. Each of us are blessed by Almighty God, Allah, with a gift. It is our responsibility to pursue that gift and identify that gift and then bring that gift into service to Allah and His messenger and to the mighty mission of the resurrection of the dead. So I just wanted to say, those of us who are waiting around for an appointment, go to work. Make something of yourself. Big fields await the wide-awake Muslim to work out in, or the wide-awake man and woman to work out in. But our life is our responsibility, and what we make of it is not on the minister, it's not on your regional minister, it's not on your superior officer. What we make out of our lives is what we make out of our lives. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes, sir. So going, we can see if anybody else has any other questions. Well, I have one, Brother James, if you don't mind giving us a little more time.
Sure.
So you mentioned in regards to how in your experience of 46 years, there were times where you were even relieved, so considered to be as an injustice. And I know that such occurrences like that can be an even greater trial. How were you able to handle that and continue to move on and not become bitter?
Well, that's a good question, because therein lies the danger, disappointment. If we don't handle it correctly, you can become bitter. And I did become, I don't say bitter, I don't think it was bitterness, but it certainly was anger. But I have to go back to being a soldier. I really have to go back to the basics, because that's our saving grace. Those of us who came up in the FOI training, when we're not on a post, when we feel disappointed, it's painful. But if we could just pick up that paper, hit the street, go to our people, and work it out. Work it out. I can remember driving down the highway after being relieved at some point. I thought it was unjust. And that's my perception. I want to make that clear. That's my perception. I mean, it could have been handled better, but the fact of the matter is nothing happens without the permission of Allah or without the will of Allah. It is either His permissive will or His active will. Nevertheless, it's within the parameters of His will. But I can remember, Brother Willie, riding down the highway, focusing on the pain of what I perceived was an injustice. I completely lost focus on the fact that I was driving. And the next thing you know, I was doing about 95 miles an hour and didn't even realize it until I came to a curve, because all I could focus on was my pain. So by the grace of Allah, I was blessed to regroup in time so that I didn't kill myself. But it taught me a lesson. When you focus on your pain, when we focus on our pain, it literally obscures the reality of your present time. It does. And your pain becomes like your whole environment, your whole life. So how did I not escape being bitter? I can't say that I didn't, that I did. I was angry. I was disappointed. But out of the mercy of Allah, it was realization of the fact that I wasn't out of the nation, that I was an FOI, that I still loved the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that I still had a job to do. And to be quite frank with you, my wife would not allow me to submerge into the valley of bitterness. She wouldn't allow it. And that's the importance of having an MGT, mission-minded MGT, a strong sister who loved the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the mission. She wouldn't allow me to do that. So in large part, it was her help, her support, her encouragement that I drew from, her strength, to be quite honest, that I drew from, her consolation, consultation, her being a good MGT wife. I drew strength from that, and I escaped the bitterness to which you are referring. And that's just the truth. It wasn't no high science, such strong faith that I had. It wasn't that at all. Well, it may have been to some degree. But I was able because I didn't go through it alone. I had someone with me who was mission-minded, is mission-minded. A woman that I'm very happy to say, she and I will celebrate our 37th anniversary in a few days, the 18th of this month.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. So that really was it. And the mercy of Allah and the realization that I was an FOI. And the reality, too, brother, of, well, where the hell are you going to go? What are you going to do? Go back into the world? Go back into drugs? Go back to the crack houses, the wine dens, and the madness that Allah brought you out of through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? I believe it was a sense of gratitude that held on to me, or held that I could hold on as well. It was the mercy of Allah and those that Allah had blessed me to have in my life. But being busy, also, as I said, doing something. Dianetics helped me a great deal. And while I'm on that note, I strongly encourage all of us who, you don't necessarily have to be a Dianetic auditor, but Dianetic auditing is a wonderful process by which we can deal with those situations of disappointment, low self-esteem, or whatever is affecting us. Dianetic auditing will help that a great deal. But I kind of ate it up. I just started taking as many courses as I could. Self-esteem building courses, learning how to confront. That is to say, learning how not to run from the reality of your life. Understanding that there's no one that you should look to for validation except Allah and His Messenger. But no one else. No one else. And I always say, when I say Allah, I always include His Messenger, because obedience to the Messenger is obedience to Allah. Obedience to Allah is obedience to the Messenger, and whatever the Messenger bounds or binds on earth, Allah binds it in heaven. They are of one mind. They are of one spirit. And so to please one is to please the other. And that's why I say Allah and His Messenger, more specifically, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But that's what helped me, dear brother, finding something to do. You know, I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, jokingly so, refer to himself as a dinosaur in terms of computers. But he himself knew that he had to become current or computer literate. And you know what he said, Brother Willie? He said, when he was making that statement humorously, he said, I know why people die. He said, because time just passes them by. And that stuck with me by the grace of Allah.
Yes, sir.
And then those, again, whom Allah has sent into my life, when in my times of difficulty, I didn't wear it well. And they could see it on my face. They could see it in my disposition. And they came to my aid, and they opened up a door for me to study as much as I possibly could, and I really didn't have to pay for it. And that was a blessing. But it's the help of Allah and those whom Allah has put in my life that allowed me to escape being bitter.
Yes, sir. We definitely appreciate that. So we're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour, so we want to see if there's anyone else that has a question they want to ask our brother while he's here, while he's on the line, because he's shared a lot of great principles that can help so many, and help all of us. And I really appreciate what he has shared. So is there anyone else who has any comments? You want to ask any questions?
Alaikum, Brother Minister.
Alaikum salam.
I just wanted to thank my brother for giving to us the unseen portion that a lot of us don't see. So when we fall into these abyss, we have a method by which we can get out. So sometimes when believers fall out, get put out, we don't never hear from them to be able to help us when our time arrives, when that comes. So I thank my brother so much, for sharing with us and giving us a diagnostic view of what he went through. So, brother, I thank you, and may Allah continue to bless more of your experience with us. So, man, I thank you so much.
Thank you for your words, dear brother. With whom am I speaking?
It's Brother Roosevelt Muhammad out of New Orleans. I'm the Minister Willie.
Brother Roosevelt. Praise be to Allah. Thank you for your words, your kind words, dear brother. The principle that I'm trying to drive home is that the life that Allah has given us is such an incomparable, magnificent, invaluable gift. And it is not tied to a post. It is not tied to a post. It's tied to us staying on the course and enduring to the end. I remember the minister quoting that scripture in Atlanta. He said, the race is not to the swift, nor to the strong, but it is to he or she who endures to the end. And then he said, somewhat rhetorically, to the end of what? He said, to the end of the process. And what is the process? It says in the Quran that man is ever struggling, striving to meet with God, to become one with his Creator. That's the process. That's the end. That's the goal, to become one with God. So let's stay the course. That's the point that I would like everyone to get. Stay the course. Stay the course. Thank you, Brother Roosevelt, for your comment.
Is there anyone else on that would like to take a last question or something before we get off?
Brother Willie?
Yeah.
This is Brother Dimitri again. And
yes, sir.
I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank Brother James as well for sharing his life experience. He was a little bit bashful, but he got through it. And thank Allah for sharing that, because over the years, he and I have become great brothers and friends. And as he would share with me his life experience and some of what he went through, the thing that was remarkable to me was everything that he said tonight was his persistence under difficulty, under trial, and even under emotional turmoil. And I thought that it would be beneficial to our nation, and I still do, because I reflected over words from Student Minister Anthony Muhammad to us here in Memphis when he was relieved from being the minister in Philadelphia, Mosque number 12. Minister Farrakhan brought him in to Chicago, and he said, brother, in corporate America, in the white man's world, when they relieve you or you're downsized or you're fired, they have, things to help you transition out of being in a position of authority. And he said, we in the nation, we don't have that yet. So you just got to get over it, brother. And in that conversation, the way I interpreted it was that the minister understood that there is a need to help people successfully transition or to be, quote unquote, properly relieved, but it needs to be developed. And I have tried to encourage my Brother James to do that, because in summation of what he said, when he was relieved, he operated in a position without a title to keep the student ministry class together in the 7th region as well as in Detroit. He began to sell 300 final calls a issue. Now, Brother James, you may not want me to say this, but he's a brother that is north of 60 years of age, and he was selling 300 final calls every issue. He also created for himself what I used to refer to as a virtual rostrum, because he started a blog talk program. He presided over several blog talk programs, so he kept himself active in teaching and delivering the word. And he went and retooled at the Dianetic org, receiving many certifications, so that after he was relieved, being over 60 years of age, he was able to once again, when a position and an opportunity became available in the city of Orlando, he became the student minister there in the aftermath of all of that. And so I salute him as an FOI, as a brother, and I pray that Allah will put it upon his heart to document what he did in a book that I think will not only benefit the nation of Islam, but I think will benefit people in the wider community, because every day, especially as America falls, men and women are losing their jobs, and let go. And so I think there's a real niche opportunity for our brother to explore and to serve a need and to benefit himself in dealing with this subject of being properly relieved and how to retool and how to come back from that type of situation. So I want to thank you, Brother Student Minister Willie, for accepting my suggestion, and thank Brother James for sharing his life experience with us tonight.
And thank you, Brother Demetric, for pushing me and pressing upon me the value of something that perhaps I didn't necessarily see the degree of value in it. But I hope that I can be a benefit in that way, Brother Demetric. I thank you. You know, I just want to say that my brother, even though I'm several years his senior, I mean, I get so much from him in the way of guidance and even in the way of mentorship in some areas. He's a very, as you all know, Brother Demetric, he's very well studied. He's an excellent defender of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the nation and the truth, and of course the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I have learned over the years so much from him. Many of the subjects that I've taught from the Rasul, we joke about it because I'm always plagiarizing, if you will, from him. So we make a big joke out of it. But I literally have volumes of information
brother.
from
I'm
my brother.
you, brother. Copyright infringement.
Yeah, I know. But all praise is due to Allah. I want to thank you, Brother Demetric, for being a brother, being a friend, being an example, being a shoulder to cry on at times. And I really appreciate you, dear brother. May Allah continue to bless you. And Brother Student Minister Willie, I thank you for coming all the way to Jacksonville and supervising and teaching that conflict resolution course, which I have my certification in that. just wanted to add that. But I thank you, Brother Willie, for that, dear brother.
Praise due to Allah. Thank you for your opportunity. We want to close out at 9. So for those who didn't make it, please take the time and send me a text message so we can, gather the feedback and what stood out to you. And even if for those who are on the call, if you have suggestions of future presentations, we have a lot of them pre-planned for right now. But inshallah, if we decide to go again for a third series, we can begin to start incorporating the ideas that you all have. So we thank our brother for his heartfelt and his sincerity, and just like what Brother Roosevelt pointed out, just for brother to be able to share that, because oftentimes we don't hear that side, and in those experiences of those who are able to survive that, they can. There are so many that can be brought from their own deathbed spiritually, right? And even some of us who can be immunized, right, to avoid certain things. So we thank you, and we thank all of you all who took the time out to call. So we leave you all with the greeting words of peace and paradise. We say assalamu alaikum, and we'll be sending you a recording of this. I'll send it to you too, Brother James. And we'll be letting you all know what the next call will be, all right? So may Allah continue to bless each and every one of you all. Thank you.
Thank you, beloved. Assalamu alaikum.